Hi, my name is Roman Glebenkov and I'm the creator of Intravenous 1 and 2. In this video, I will give you a brief overview of what it's like to use the level editor so that you have some kind of understanding of what it's like to make a level for Intravenous 2. Let's start with the basics. Click on the map editor button and then on new map. Here you can enter the size of the map in tiles. A single tile is 16 by 16 pixels large. That means 16 horizontally and 16 pixels vertically. For the purpose of this video, we'll set the level size to 150 tiles by 150 tiles. Next, click on the Create Map button and you're in the level. This gives you a completely empty level, which is where the level editing process begins. Let's start with the basics. You might want to turn off the lighting, as it can be a little bit confusing and it skews the way your level looks. Let's start with the editing mode overview up here. As you can see, there are many different editing modes and all of them have their own different use. The first mode allows you to place different types of tiles, also known as floors. For example, we can select this tile type by clicking G. This selects whatever is on our mouse, or we can select any of the tiles from the list here. There are lots and lots of various tile types, but for the purpose of this video, let's do something simple. Let's say we want to put a tile floor here. We can do this in many ways. One of the ways to quickly place a large area of tiles is to hold the left control button and drag the area you wish to place. This will replace all the tiles in the selected area with the tile type that you currently have selected. Another way is to simply place it like so, by holding down the left mouse button. You can adjust the tile placement range by clicking on the plus and the minus signs on your numpad. Clicking plus without holding down shift will increase the horizontal placement range, while holding down shift and clicking plus will increase the vertical placement range. This way you can very quickly change a large area without having to hold down a particular area. In order to remove tiles or revert it back to the usual dirt type, you can simply hold the right mouse button and move your mouse around. Right, now let's start with something basic. Let's make a small room using the tile 11 floor type. Now that we've placed the tiles themselves, we want to switch over to the wall mode. This is how we place walls, and just like with tiles, there are many different wall types. Let's say we want to place a solid wall, which is what is used for most of the walls in the game, and place a couple of windows to allow the player to climb through. There are different wall types with different properties. Some of them look like windows, but they don't allow the player to climb through them. Some of them are windows and they actually allow you to climb through them. In some cases, you might want to place a window that's not climbable because on the other side of the window is the end of the level. For this purpose, however, let's have 3 windows here and 1 door. In order to place a door, we need to go into the tile grid objects category. Once we're there, we can either click on View Placeable Objects to get a list of all the object classes we can place and select one of them, or we can cycle through the classes by simply rotating the mouse wheel. In this case, I want to place a door. Having selected the door class, it shows me the placement precision as well as the angle at which I will place the door. 1 by 1 is very accurate, but in this case, I might want to make it a little bit more broad. That's why by clicking plus on the numpad, you can increase the placement range and lock it to a smaller grid size. This way you can finally control the steps with which the position of the door is set. In the case with doors, usually you'll use the 4x4 to properly align them to the edge of each wall, like so. Now that we've placed the wall, we might want to test our map. In order to do that, let's place a player spawn object. We will cycle through the object classes by moving the mouse wheel until we reach the player_spawn class. Now that we have arrived at the player spawn class, we simply place it down like we did with the door. Now, in order to place ourselves in the game world, we simply press F2 as is written here. Now that we're in the game world, we can actually test out our level. In this case, I want to check whether I can jump through windows and whether I can move this door. Everything seems okay, so let's get back into the editing mode by once more pressing F2. It's good practice to save our progress. Your power might go out, or maybe your PC will restart, and since the level editor does not have any autosave function, you could lose all your progress. For that, we simply press F3. And we can name our map whatever we like. For example, my first level. Click Save Map to save the level. Now, let's say I want to put a bad guy in this room, or maybe a bad guy around the room. Either way, let's decorate this building a little bit. You can search for the exact tile type you're looking for by typing into the text box over here. In this case, I want to make a nice outline around the building. This is a purely preferential thing to do, but I prefer to contrast buildings this way to better differentiate it from the rest of the environment. As you can see, the two tile types are conflicting here because they're too close. So I will simply revert some of them back to the dirt floor type. This will fix the blending issues and will make it look nice and smooth. In order to speed up the placement of the pavements, I will increase the placement area so that I can place 9 tiles at once. I can just as easily simply hold down Control, drag, and place. Now that we have a sidewalk around our asymmetrical house, let's place a couple of enemies. In order to place an enemy, you need to go into the NPC placement/editing mode. You can also enter any of the modes here by pressing the corresponding key on your keyboard. So if I want to switch to the NPC placement mode, I simply click 8 on the keyboard. Now, I want to place a goon over here and over here. In order to do that, I simply point my mouse to where I want to place the enemy and press F1. Now, if I want to edit the placed enemy, I simply right-click on him. This brings up a huge list of things we can do to adjust his behavior, his visual, the weapon he has, and other things. So let's give this guy a pistol, and let's leave him inexperienced with guns. The experience levels influence enemy AI as well as the amount of health they have. And let's give this guy a slightly different visual because the game automatically assigned him a police skin, but I want him to look like a motorist. And aside from that, let's give him a shotgun. Now, the enemies themselves, without anything assigned to them, will simply stand here. They're not going to do anything. And we can verify that by simply placing ourselves in the game world again and walking around. As you can see, they're not doing anything. In order to get them to move, we need to give them some kind of objective. Most often you do this by simply setting up a patrol path. So once again, switch to the patrol path setup mode and create a new patrol path. In order to create a new patrol path, we simply press N on the keyboard. Now, this will be a patrol path specifically for the goon outside. I want him to patrol around the building, which is why I will set up several patrol points for this path in particular. This is where he starts, this is where he goes, then he goes here, then he goes here, and lastly he goes here. Now, each of these points can have a specific direction that the NPC will look at when he reaches it, as well as the duration for which he will look in that particular direction. Because I don't want this patrol route to be too difficult for the player, I will make him look only downwards for 5 seconds. This way, he's going to look at this guy when he starts the path and also when he ends the path and comes back. Now let's take a look at the rest of the path. Here, 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 and here. This is a relatively easy path, but it can be difficult for a player because the NPC at the time being does not stop anywhere. He goes in a circular fashion and stops only at this point, at the starting position. We want to give the player a slightly easier time when it comes to sneaking next to the house, which is why we need to pick one of the placed points and give him a slight delay as well as a direction that the NPC will look in. In this case, I want to pick this particular point. I will make him look away from the house for 5 seconds before continuing with his path. Lastly, we want to save this path, as what we've done just now is simply edited. In order to save it, we press P on the keyboard. And let's call it outside. The patrol route that we've just created is not actually assigned to anybody, and on its own it's not going to do anything, which is why we want to assign it to an NPC. In this case, it's going to be Goon U1. Now that the patrol route is assigned, if we go into the game mode, we will notice that the NPC will start following this patrol route. I don't want to get shot, so I need to move out the way, and at the bottom there, he will look in that direction for 5 seconds. However, there is one thing we forgot to do. With the way this patrol route is set up, it's not marked as circular, which means that once the NPC reaches this point in the patrol path, he will go back like so. He's going to retread his path until he comes back to the beginning. And because the reverse look, angle, and duration is not set up, he will not stop or wait. In order to change this patrol route tab, we simply mark it as circular. That way, when the NPC goes through the whole path and finishes it, he will immediately return to the first point in the patrol route instead of going back and retracing his steps. With our path set up, I want to move this guy slightly a little bit to the right so that it's easier for the player. I also want to give the player some kind of reward for going inside the building, otherwise there is no incentive to go inside. For this particular purpose, I will create a map/obstacle object, which is going to be a table. And I will place a money_pickup class object on it. By picking up this object, the player will receive $500. Its name will be wad of cash. And for that reason, we need to pick a fitting sprite for this money pickup. Now that we've selected the sprite, you will notice that if you try to place it here, it works just fine. However, if I were to pick some kind of different sprite, there's no guarantee that it will be placed on top of it. That's why here you have the keys Q, Z, and C to adjust the render depth as well as the height of the object that you're placing on top of whatever it is that your mouse is on. For example, right now this ammo box is positioned underneath the table, both in terms of its height as well as the render depth. We want it to be above the table so that we can not only interact with this object since if it's underneath the table, we can't interact with it, but also we want it to be rendered on top of the table. That is why I put my mouse over the table here and press Q. And now the object is positioned on the table. However, I have no need for this, but this is just for you to understand what these keys do. Likewise, pressing C will position the object beneath the table. This is useful in case where you need to place some kind of decorational object, for example a box, underneath a table, or anything else really, like so. Now that we have the award for the player for sneaking into the building, we can turn the lights on. We will notice immediately that there is no lighting. So you can go into map settings and press compute lighting. This will compute static lighting, and any level in the game requires this. Otherwise, your level will look like there's no light anywhere and everything is full bright. Once that's done, we notice that there is light now, but something isn't right. It seems like these walls are casting shadows, but these windows are low and therefore they cast no shadow. In order to overcome this, we go into the roof light obstructor mode and simply place a roof obstructor. With roof light obstructors, we can do the same thing that we did with floors. By holding down Shift, we can precisely control the grid placement. In this case, it's 8 by 8 pixels. Now this roof light obstructor completely covers the building that we've created. In order for any lighting changes to take effect, we need to once more go into map settings and click on compute lighting. Now that we've computed the lighting, it is dark inside because now we have a roof over the building. However, light is bleeding in through these windows, so it's not all dark. However, if we were to remove these windows like so and compute the lighting again, there is light bleeding in only through this opening here where the door is, and so it's even more dark now. Let's place the windows back where they were so that it's not too dark inside. Okay, so we have a building now. We have light leaking in through the windows and through the opening here. However, it's daytime and it's pretty difficult to sneak around when it's bright. For that purpose, we can go into map settings and change the sunlight color, lit areas, to night. Once we close the menu, the lighting will be immediately updated. However, it is now even darker inside than it was before. We don't want that. Let's fix that by placing a light source. To do that, we once again switch to the tile grid objects placement mode, and we go all the way back until we reach the ceiling_lamp class. Now that we have a lamp, we just need to adjust it here. The radius control is fairly obvious. It controls the radius of the light. In this case, I don't want it to give too much light since I want to be able to sneak around. For this case, I set it to 200. However, I don't like the color, so I will change it to warm. You can change each individual color channel here. The first one is red, second is green, and last one is blue. You can also just as easily click on the presets button and pick any of the light color presets. But for this particular purpose, I will choose the warm dimmer color. Now that the light has been placed, we once more would like to compute the lighting, as the lighting in Intravenous for all light sources is comprised of both dynamic and static pre-computed light. Now that it's computed, it looks a little bit different. Okay, we have made a decent amount of progress and we don't want to lose it, so let's save the level once more. Now that we've saved the level, and since we know the patrol route, we would like the player to have some kind of cover to hide behind and to sneak around, right? One of the ways we can do this is to simply place some walls. This will give us solid cover from bullets as well as solid cover from line of sight. However, just placing walls might make your level look kind of ugly. For that purpose, we go once more into the object placement mode and switch to the map_obstacle class objects. We want to place a couple of high and low objects to differentiate and to give the player a bit of a stealth challenge when it comes to sneaking around. For this purpose, I will place a couple of dumpsters. A dumpster is essentially a waist-high object that the player can hide behind only if he goes prone. If the player stands well behind one of these dumpsters, he will be detected. On the other hand, if I place a certain box type, they will be higher than the player, and the player can therefore hide behind them without having to go prone. There are many different sprites to choose from, so don't be shy and mix things up so that things look better. Once more, I will turn off the lighting, grab the tile underneath this wall here, and slightly contour these walls so that they stick out more from the rest of the scene. And let's do the same with the boxes. With different tiles under the boxes and the dumpsters themselves, we can better differentiate where the objects are visually. Now that we have a really basic layout here, we want to give the player some kind of loadout. There are many ways to take care of this. The first way of handling this is to simply go into the tile grid objects placement mode once more, navigate to the dropped_weapon class, and place weapons around the level. You can adjust both the ammo type that the weapon uses as well as what kind of attachments it comes with. So let's place an AR-15 with a 2x scope, a suppressor, and a small magazine right over here by the dumpster, because somebody really didn't like that 2x scope. Aside from that, we also want to give the player some ammo to play around with. So let's switch to the ammo_pickup object class and place down on the level, right next to the AR-15. Now, we have a weapon here, but what if we want to let the player choose his own loadout? This is where cutscenes come into play. By switching to the cutscene setup mode, we can create a new cutscene. Let's call it intro. And the purpose of this cutscene will be to simply open the loadout menu and to save the game once this cutscene finishes playing. Now that we've created a cutscene, it does not mean that it will be triggered immediately. The game has no idea which cutscene is supposed to be the intro or the end or anything in between. In order to trigger this cutscene that we've just created, which we can see here, we have to switch to the tile grid object placement mode once more and switch to the cutscene trigger class. We know that the player spawn object is somewhere around here. So what we can do is we can simply place a cutscene trigger over here, right click on it, select trigger at night, trigger at daytime, and enter the cutscene ID that we want to trigger with it. Now that the cutscene is in place, let's save the game one more time and place ourselves in the game world. As you can see, the moment I placed myself into the game world, the loadout menu opened, and now we can select whatever it is that we want. In this case, I want to simply select an MP5 SD along with a Desert Eagle and maybe a frag grenade, and that's okay. Now that we have spawned into the game world with weapons, we can test around. Once we're done playing around with the level, we can just as always press escape, R, and here we are again at the beginning of the level. Now I want to get in here, steal the money, and get out. So let's wait for this guy to move. And if our patrol route setup is correct, he's going to stop here and look at the wall. Which he does. I get in, I grab the money, I wait for him to go, and I leave. And that's that. Hopefully this video guide gives you a good enough understanding of what it's like to set up a basic level in Intravenous 2. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you make some kind of cool levels. Bye bye now.